They say every hero is born from the light, but what if darkness is the only way? That's the question that echoes in the void before everything begins. Because sometimes what we call light is just a comfortable lie, and what we call darkness might be the truth no one wants to see. Imagine being born into a world that rejects you, where every choice made for survival pushes you a little deeper into the abyss. It's easy to judge the villain when you've never felt the weight of being forgotten. But what if darkness isn't evil, but rather the distorted reflection of a soul that tried too hard to be good? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. The birth of the abyss doesn't happen all at once. It begins with a whisper, with a silent wound, with the loss of something that should never have been taken. With each fall, with each betrayal, the light fades, not because evil was chosen, but because good simply ceased to respond. It is at this point that the son of darkness awakens. He doesn't emerge out of ambition, but out of necessity, out of a desire to understand why a world rewards lies and punishes those who feel too much. There's something profoundly human in this kind of transformation, isn't there? Have you ever felt that no matter how much you did everything right, fate still pushed you in the wrong direction? This is the kind of pain that creates monsters, but it's also the kind of pain that reveals truths. When the soul is pushed to its limit, a new strength is born, something that doesn't bow before suffering, that doesn't beg for light, but learns to shine within its own darkness. And it is precisely here that the true story begins, the moment when innocence dies, and in its place something stronger, colder, more conscious is born. The abyss is not just a place, it's a state of mind, a mirror that shows who you truly are when the world takes away everything that made you human. The son of darkness is not the villain the world portrays him to be. He is the consequence of everything the world pretended not to see. Every swallowed tear, every silent scream, every broken promise, all become fuel for something that cannot be undone. And perhaps that is why so many identify with this journey, because deep down, we all have a fragment of shadow hidden within us. The difference is that some learn to hide it, while others learn to master it. But beware, mastering darkness comes at a price. And the deeper one goes, the thinner the line becomes between power and damnation. It's easy to get lost when hatred begins to look like justice, when revenge sounds like redemption. And it is on this threshold that the son of darkness begins to understand that the true enemy was never the world outside, but the very abyss growing within him. What makes him fascinating is not just the power he gains, but the reason he seeks it. It's not about destruction, it's about purpose, about filling the void left by abandonment. And while everyone fears the shadow, he learns to shape it. What was once weakness becomes strength, and what was once pain transforms into identity. Have you ever felt something like this? The feeling that chaos, however cruel it may seem, is the only place where you truly understand yourself. If so, then perhaps you understand what the son of darkness is about to discover. Because the birth of the abyss is not the end of a story, it is only the beginning of something much greater, something that not even light itself could contain. And perhaps it is precisely at this point that the story ceases to be just about him and begins to be in some way about all of us. Because deep down, each one carries their own shadow. Each one faces their own abyss in silence, and that is what makes this journey so real. It speaks not only of power or downfall, but of what happens within the soul when the world forces you to choose between feeling or surviving. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far. I really want to know which part of this story resonated with what you've already experienced. Sometimes a simple phrase or a heartfelt outpouring can connect people who are going through the same kind of darkness, and that's exactly why this space exists. Each comment here isn't just an opinion, it's a flame lit in the middle of this abyss. And if this story made you think, if it somehow made you see darkness in a different way, then leave a like. It may seem like a small gesture, but that's what keeps the content reaching more people who need to hear this message. Each like helps the channel grow, helps this story reach those who may be at their limit, needing to remember that even in darkness, there is something beautiful, and that the end is not always what it seems. And of course, if you enjoy this kind of reflection, these stories that blend the dark with the human, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way you can continue walking with me through these narratives where light and shadow meet, and nothing is as simple as it seems. Your presence here is what gives meaning to all of this. It's what keeps this exchange alive, this community that isn't afraid to look at the dark side of the soul, because it understands that it is often from there that the strength that moves the world is born. So stay here, because what comes next plunges even deeper into this abyss. And perhaps when you see what is about to happen, you will realize that the Son of Darkness never wanted to be a villain. He simply learned to survive in the only place where the light refused to enter. From an early age, he learned that silence could be more cruel than any word. He was just a boy with simple dreams and a heart that believed in goodness. But the world around him seemed to have other plans. Every averted glance, every broken promise, every stifled laugh at his expense gradually shaped something within him, a fissure that grew, spread, until it became part of who he was. It wasn't the darkness that chose him. He found it when the light faded. In the beginning, he still believed he could change things, that if he were good enough, someone would notice him, that effort would be rewarded, that justice existed. But the hidden truth is that the world is rarely fair to those who feel too much. And it was when he realized this that the transformation began. What was once pain became silence. What was once fear became focus. He stopped seeking approval and began seeking meaning, because sometimes understanding the chaos is the only way to avoid going insane within it. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because what this boy discovered wasn't just the weight of rejection, but the impact it has on the soul. He realized that when the world pushes you outward, the only real choice is to build a new one within yourself. The shadow, once feared, began to become a refuge, a place where he could be whole without needing to hide. It was there, in the shadows of pain, that his new mindset was born. He understood that darkness doesn't destroy, it reveals. It shows who you are when everything else fades away. And it is at this point that the journey ceases to be about escape and becomes about decision. The rejected boy transforms into someone who no longer needs anyone's approval, because sometimes it's necessary to embrace the shadow to finally understand one's own light. Comment below, I'm on this journey too. It was on a night when the silence seemed to scream that he heard the call. That kind of voice that doesn't come from outside, but from within. A whispering promise of power, born from the very emptiness that consumed him. The air seemed denser, time slowed down, and for a moment all that existed was temptation. The forbidden power did not present itself as something evil, but as liberation. It was the chance to no longer be a victim of his own story, the chance to make the world feel the same weight he carried alone. But all power has a price, and the most dangerous is the one that silently demands the soul's toll. The hidden truth is that no one is truly prepared for the moment when darkness offers an escape. It disguises itself as opportunity, redemption, justice. And he, tired of being the weak one, began to listen. Each word seemed to fit the wounds the world had left open. It wasn't just about strength, it was about control, about not depending on anyone else, a decision that seemed to bring light but was born from the shadows. It's strange how the human mind works when fear mixes with desire. What once seemed impossible begins to seem inevitable. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject because this dark pact wasn't just a power agreement, it was a reflection of everything he had become. The transformation didn't happen explosively, but silently, almost imperceptibly. Little by little, his gaze changed, his heart hardened, and something new took shape within him, a presence that whispered truths that no one else would dare to say. He began to understand the inner workings of his own destiny, to realize that sometimes evil doesn't come to destroy, but to awaken. And the deeper he plunged, the more welcoming the abyss seemed. It was impossible to know if he had made the right choice. Perhaps that pact was the beginning of liberation or ruin. Comment below. This makes sense to me. The instant the power coursed through his veins for the first time, something inside him shattered, and something else was born in its place. It was as if darkness itself had found a body to inhabit. His eyes, once filled with uncertainty, now shone with an almost hypnotic intensity, reflecting something that was no longer human. His voice, once trembling, gained weight, a vibration that made the air seem heavier around him, and even the silence, the one that had once crushed him, now seemed to bow before him. It was the awakening of darkness, and for the first time he felt he was in control. But power rarely comes without scars. The transformation brought strength, yes, but it also brought pain. His body burned from within, as if a living energy were trying to escape. The people around him began to distance themselves, not by choice, but by instinct. There was something in his gaze that provoked fear, something that betrayed that he was no longer the same. And perhaps it was true, because what he gained in power, he lost in peace. The solitude that was once a consequence now became part of who he was, inevitable, almost necessary. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because true transformation doesn't happen in the body, but in the mind. He began to see the world differently, as if he had crossed an invisible threshold. The voices that tormented him now seemed like advisors. Chaos turned into clarity, pain became fuel. He understood that all strength has a cost, and that the price of greatness is disconnection. The impact of his decisions began to spread, silently, like a shadow that touches everything it loves. And the more he tried to control the power, the more the power molded him from within. It was impossible to know if the boy from before still existed, or if the abyss had already completely taken over. Comment below. This makes sense to me. Over time, victory lost its taste. Each battle won brought with it a greater emptiness, as if with each blow he lost a fragment of what he once was. Power had elevated him, but it also separated him from everything he loved. The faces that once surrounded him began to fade from his memory, like shadows dissolved by the wind. The force that made him invincible was the same that left him incapable of feeling, and silence, that old companion, returned now not as punishment, but as a constant reminder that something inside him was dying. The transformation that once seemed liberating now revealed its true price. Humanity was slowly crumbling, in the words he no longer knew how to say, in the tears he could no longer cry. He observed his reflection in the mirror and saw a stranger looking back, someone who carried too much power and too little soul. The impact of his decisions began to show itself in the background of his own mind, where the past mingled with regret. The hero he could have been no longer existed, replaced by a cold presence, shaped by pain and need. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because what he lost wasn't just the affection of others, but the meaning of existence. Winning became mechanical, automatic, without purpose. The strength he once desired now dominated him. It was as if darkness had claimed every fragment of light that remained. The voices of the past, the laughter, the simple gestures. Everything disappeared, swallowed by a somber calm. He realized he could destroy any enemy, but he could no longer recognize himself. And perhaps that is the hidden truth about power. It transforms not only the world around you, but what you are inside. Each victory left an invisible scar, a reminder of the price paid for something that was never free. Comment below, this makes sense to me. There was a strange silence within him, the kind of silence that comes after a war. He was no longer fighting external enemies. Now the battle was internal. The power that once made him feel invincible began to reveal its true face. It was like a flame that illuminated and burned at the same time. Each time he tried to control the darkness, it enveloped him a little more, whispering promises that mixed redemption and ruin. The contrast between what remained of light and what the shadow demanded created a constant tension, as if two versions of himself were vying for the same body. He began to see the hidden truth. The enemy was never out there. The destruction he caused in the world was a reflection of what he couldn't face within himself. The anger, the pride, the fear, everything he tried to hide was now taking shape, demanding space. It was a fight without witnesses, waged behind the scenes of his own soul. And the more he struggled, the more he realized that perhaps there was no possible victory, only choice. Because resisting the darkness meant denying part of himself, but surrendering to it meant losing everything that still made him human. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this confrontation wasn't just spiritual, it was existential. He began to question his decisions, to wonder if power was a gift or a prison. The mindset that had once kept him grounded now crumbled, revealing how fragile strength can be when pain is the fuel that sustains it. With each step, the light within him flickered hesitantly, as if still searching for a reason to keep fighting. The impact of this revelation divided him. Part wanted redemption, part simply wanted to end it all. And the audience, like him, was trapped on this threshold between hope and the abyss. Comment below, I'm on this journey too. The world no longer saw him as a man, but as a threat. Where there was once compassion, now there was fear. The people he once tried to protect turned against him, fueled by distorted stories and the need to blame someone for their own chaos. The heroes who emerged to confront him didn't see what lay behind his fury, only the monster they believed they needed to destroy. And perhaps it was easier that way. After all, it's simpler to hate what you don't understand than to try to see the hidden truth behind the scars. He no longer ran from battles. Each confrontation was a reminder that the world had chosen him to be the enemy. The pain of being hunted began to transform into purpose. The son of darkness understood that it was no use trying to prove who he was anymore. The label was already marked on his skin. So, for the first time, he accepted the role the world had imposed on him. If they wanted a villain, they would have the most feared of all. But behind that cold gaze, something still existed, a silent flame that struggled not to be completely extinguished. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this acceptance wasn't surrender, it was transformation. He realized that true power lay not in being loved or feared, but in taking control of one's own narrative. His mindset changed. He no longer sought redemption, but impact. He wanted his existence to be felt, for the world to never again ignore the name it once pronounced with disdain. The hero who died gave way to a legend that was born. And, behind the scenes of this turning point, a new truth was forming. Sometimes it is the world itself that creates the monsters it later learns to fear. The son of darkness wasn't born a villain. He was shaped by every rejection, every injustice, and every scornful glance that pushed him toward the abyss. And now, from that abyss, he looked back. Comment below, this makes sense to me. The climax of the story arrived like a cutting wind that doesn't choose its victims. The power he had conquered with so much effort, and which seemed capable of bending the world to his will, revealed its true price, cruel and inevitable. Everything that was once fascination now transformed into a silent prison, a trap that slowly devoured the essence of who he was. Each victory carried with it a loss. Each conquest left deep scars, invisible to the eyes of others but indelible on the soul. He finally realized that the force that seemed like freedom was, in fact, an invisible chain, a silent contract that demanded what he loved most in exchange for the power he desired. In the most devastating moment, that which gave him hope, the presence of someone or something that still represented light amidst the darkness, was consumed by the power he sought to control. The emotional impact was absolute, a mixture of shock, guilt, pain, and despair that spread through every fiber of his being. He found himself alone, surrounded by everything he had achieved, but empty inside, as if each victory had torn away a piece of his own humanity. The hidden truth of ambition cruelly revealed itself. The power he so longed for not only shaped the world around him, but began to shape his own spirit, transforming each conquest into a painful reminder of what was being lost. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this isn't just the story of one man. It's a reflection of the impact that extreme decisions have on any journey. Every choice made under the pressure of ambition, every step taken in pursuit of absolute control, reveals unseen behind-the-scenes events. The transformation of mindset, the silent erosion of empathy, and the corrosive effect of bearing the responsibility for everything and everyone. He didn't become a villain out of malice. It was the need to protect himself, to avoid further hurt, to be strong enough to survive, that pushed him into darkness. But the cruel irony is that this same strength made him vulnerable in a way he never imagined, showing how power can be both liberating and devastating. The impact of his decisions was reflected in everything. In the void left by those who drifted away, in the memories that began to fade, in the very essence that diluted with each step towards glory. Darkness always takes its toll, and often the price is not visible until it is too late. He gained respect, fear, and notoriety, but at an immeasurable cost. The loss of what truly mattered, the fading of bonds and feelings that kept him connected to the world. Each sacrifice became a reflection of the human dilemma between ambition and humanity, showing that what seems like strength is often only the beginning of a silent ruin. And yet, even amidst the devastation, there is a profound lesson. Every villain, before being feared, was someone who simply wanted to be strong enough to never be hurt again. Power, without purpose, transforms, but it also reveals. It shows us that even darkness has a price, that every conquest carries a debt, and that the journey of transformation is made up of both choices and losses. In each fragment of its story, there are behind-the-scenes details that teach about the complexity of decisions, about the vulnerability that strength can conceal, and about the invisible impact that defines each person's path. Comment below, I'm on this journey too. In the silence that remained after the entire battle, he finally began to understand the truth that had always been there, hidden behind every decision he made. Power, the power that made him feel invincible and elevated him above any obstacle, was not a prize, but a trap carefully disguised as an opportunity. It was a golden prison, shining on the outside, seductive, but consuming every fragment of humanity that remained within him. The more he fed it, the more it fed on him, corroding his emotions, his bonds, his essence. And ironically, each victory that seemed to liberate him imprisoned him even further in the abyss he himself helped to build. He came to understand that the entire journey of transformation, all the strength gained, had a price that no one mentions in tales of heroes or stories of villains. Even darkness exacts a price. The pain, the loneliness, the fear of being understood or accepted, all of this is part of the invisible impact that power causes. He realized that the enemies he faced Outside were merely reflections of what he carried within. Each battle, each confrontation, tested not only his strength, but also his ability to remain human amidst what seemed inevitable. The human mind, when confronted with extreme choices, reacts in ways we don't always understand at first glance. What seemed to be a winning decision transformed into a revelation of the price of one's own ambition, one's own thirst for control. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this lesson isn't just his, it's universal. Every villain, before being feared, was once someone who simply wanted to be strong enough to never be hurt again. Before embracing the darkness, they existed in a reality full of vulnerabilities, dreams, and fears. The mindset that led them to the pinnacle of power was shaped by rejection, betrayal, and the need for survival. They sought protection, but found destruction. And that's where the deepest lesson lies. True transformation isn't measured by the power gained, but by the impact it has on who we are, on our decisions, on the journey we take, and the people we leave behind. Power without purpose is dangerous because it seduces, because it promises glory and control. But in reality, it only reveals what has always been hidden. It shows the hidden truth about our choices and the price we pay for wanting something that seems beyond our reach. The Son of Darkness learned this the hard way. What seems like freedom is often prison, and what seems like strength can be the beginning of inner ruin. Every victory brings a piece of loss, every conquest leaves an invisible scar, and every step towards glory can push a heart that still longs for connection into an unfathomable void. And even at this point, there's something fascinating about his journey. Because while we see the monster the world fears, we can also perceive the human he was, and, in small sparks, still can be. He is a reminder and a warning, a lesson and a reflection. Power without purpose consumes, but also reveals, and the darkness he embraced carries with it a truth that is difficult to accept, but worth reflecting upon. It's the impact of transformation, the complexity of decisions, the mindset shaped by pain, and the journey that teaches that every triumph has a price, and that often the deepest lesson comes from the abyss that no one else wants to face. Comment below, I'm on this journey too. And so, the question echoes in the shadows. After all that has been lost, is there still a way back? Or has the Son of Darkness already crossed the point where return is possible? He carries the weight of all the decisions that shaped him, the guilt, the power, the emptiness. The world calls him a monster, but perhaps the true monster is the pain that transformed him. There is a fine line between redemption and condemnation, and he walks on it like someone crossing the edge of a blade. With each step, he bleeds a little more of what remained of his humanity. Yet there is something in his gaze, an almost invisible spark, a distant memory of what he once was. It is in this contradiction that the hidden truth resides. No one is lost all at once. Darkness doesn't swallow immediately. It seduces, envelops, promises relief, until the light fades without us noticing. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because perhaps this isn't just the story of a villain, but a reflection of all those who have ever found themselves on the verge of losing their own essence. His transformation mirrors our own journey. How much are we willing to sacrifice to achieve what we believe we deserve? And what if, in the end, the price of victory is precisely what makes us human? Do you think he can still return to the light? Or is he already doomed to become the monster the world fears? Comment below. Darkness also has a price. If you've made it this far, it means this story really captivated you. So, leave a comment saying, I'm with you until the end. So I know you followed every step of this journey with me. And if this narrative resonated with you, leave a like too. It's not just a number. It's a way to show that the connection we built throughout the video truly made sense. And if you want to continue exploring this universe, there's a video here that complements this topic. Click and continue with me there. There, the story continues, bringing new revelations, showing the behind-the-scenes of choices that change destinies and delving even deeper into the transformation of the Son of Darkness. Let's discover together the details that no one notices at first glance and delve into the consequences of each decision, understanding how power and darkness shape the mind and soul of those who dare to cross that thin line between light and shadow.